I'm just going to open this on the White Witch page so that I can see the comments on both pages. So bear with me a moment. I decided we'd have some music in the background today as well, rather than just silence when I stop for a minute. So if the music's too loud, let me know. Because it can always be turned down. Right, okay. So, first of all, what house am I talking about, right? If you're in Elgin, and you come up to Bishopmill, as you cross the bridge, Bishopmill Bridge, if you look slightly to your left, you'll see there's a wee manicured lawn and a little boathouse, and above that there's a great big house with a humongous walled garden. That's the house I'm talking about. It's beautiful. But sadly, there's not actually that much to be found on it information-wise. So, I have resorted to a habit some of you will be used to by now, and I have what information I could find, which is only 3 sheets of A4, and then I have the story of their family history, and then I have a transcript from a court case. Yes, Maggie, the migraine's away. I was still struggling yesterday, but it's fine today. So Deansford House. At the east end of Bishopmill stands East Neuk, which is its original name. This now beautiful spot was formerly a steep bank of sand with a few whin bushes and stunted trees. The late Mrs. Gordon had it enclosed with substantial walls, got the ground sloped and tastefully laid out, and it really is amazing. What you can see from the bridge is amazing. I'd love to have a wander around. In 1860, she built the house that stands there now. On her death in 1865, it fell to her son, who was in Australia at the time. And then it was leased out to a Captain Thompson, who was the adjutant of the Murrayshire Battalion of Volunteers. And then we have the obligatory architectural description, which is in all of these historic pieces that you do. I've translated some of the terms for you so it's a bit easier to get. So it's a mid-19th century, 1860, we know that. 2-storey house with a raised basement. It has a basement, but it's raised. Basically, it's a basement on this side of the hill, but if you're looking at it from the riverside, it's not underground. It's above ground from the riverside. It's just below ground at this side. Because the house is on a slope, it basically goes like that. It has 3 bays on the front with a centre door. There's a wing, another wing to the back, which is the bit that you can see from the bridge. Tooled coarse rubble to raised basement. So basically, the basement has been built the same way Spiny Palace and Elgin Cathedral are. It's a rubble wall that's been made to fit together properly. The front doorway has a round-headed arch with a raised keystone. Right, raised keystone. So the bit in the middle of the arch, instead of being directly above the door, is slightly higher, so that it can accommodate a fan-light window, a window that's shaped like in the shape of a fan, like was popular in the 1950s. The centre first floor window has a small console bracketed wooden pediment, a fancy wooden stick-it out bit that's stuck onto the wall. Simple as that. Canted bay windows. The sticky out bay windows with the flat front and the angled sides. Rising through, up to and around the first floors. The one on the east has an oriel. An oriel is a big sticky out bay window where the sides of it, well, the front of it doesn't actually come down to the ground. It's an oriel because it's kind of self-supporting. You know when you see, like, there's the wall, and then you get this wee funky sticky out bit that's got a bay window on top of it? That's an oriel window. See? We'll have you edumacated by the end of lockdown, one way or t'other. The sticky out windy, the Oriole one, has a decorative corbelling. Anything that's fancy carved that's hidden something up is a decorated corbel at raised basement level. There are four pane glazing. It's a windy with 4 panels in it. Deep moulded wooden eaves. The bitties that had the roof up are moulded into shapes and carved into shapes, so it looks bonnier. And a corniced end chimney stacks. So the chimneys are at the ends of the building, they're no in the middle. Corniced, they're just been fancied up a bit so they look a bit posher than what they actually are. Shallow pitch slate roof. Instead of going lacquer, it's a wee bit more lacquer. Simple. Long multi-pane stair window to the rear. So the staircase is down the back of the building, and the window for the staircase sounds like it's the full height of the staircase. So it's got lots of different panes. I've gotten already, Claire, but thank you. I got some online. I paid more than I should have, but never mind, it's done now. And I got a litre, so. So we have the multi-pane window at the back. And then we have high rubble garden and retaining walls. In other words, the garden walls are built like the cathedral walls. It's rubble with some bigger chunks of rubble on the outside, holding it all together. Rusticated piers. They've been fancied up a bit. A pier is basically what you would call a column. So far, every so often, along the garden wall, there's these fancied up bits that look like pillars. They might just have been carved to be a particular pattern. They might have been carved to look kind of rustic, but similar to each other. Yeah, I would love to see it, Scott. I really would love to see it. And the front gate, square ashlar pillars with moulded copes. The stone on top's been moulded into a nice shape. Simple as that. It's a Category B listed building. And this wee extract I got from the Ordnance Survey Name Book from 1861 to 1871, Volume 12, if you're interested. East Neuk, a very handsome villa at the east end of Bishopmill. It is 2 stories high and in first-rate condition. Property of the Earl of Seafield. Then, in 1903, from Slater's Royal National Directory of Scotland, we have a Reverend Malcolm M. Ross staying there, but it doesn't tell us anything about him. So I decided to focus on the Earl of Seafield. So, the Earl of Seafield who lived in that house was James Ogilvy Grant, the 9th Earl of Seafield, born on the 27th of December 1817, and he died on the 5th of June 1888. He was known for most of his life as the Honourable James Ogilvy Grant. He was a Scottish peer and a Conservative Member of Parliament. Apologies, but it's in the past, so we can't help that. Seafield was the 4th son of Francis William Ogilvy Grant, the 6th Earl of Seafield, and his wife Mary Ann Dunn. He achieved the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the army, and at the 1868 general election he was elected to the House of Commons as MP for Elginshire and Nairnshire as a Conservative, a seat he held until his defeat at the 1874 general election. In 1884, he succeeded his nephew and became the 9th Earl of Seafield. A few months later, he was created Baron Strathspey of Strathspey in the counties of Inverness and Moray, in the peerage of the United Kingdom. So he inherited a fancy title that got him into a load of history books. A lot more than his house is actually in. This title was a revival of the barony created for his older brother in 1858. This gave him an automatic seat in the House of Lords. So by giving him the fancy title, he's moved up from the House of Commons to the House of Lords. That's better. I'm not in the sun now. Lord Seafield got married 3 times. The first time he got married was the 6th of April 1841 to Caroline Louisa Evans, who died on the 6th of February 1850. She was the second daughter of Evra, I don't know how I'm supposed to say it, it's E-V-R-E, Evans, of Ashhill Towers in County Limerick and Milton Castle, County Cork. The only child that she had with Lord Seafield became the Honourable Francis William Ogilvie Grant, who later became the 10th Earl of Seafield. Hey, Cara! After his first wife's death in 1850, he married secondly. The second wedding was on the 13th of April. He liked an April wedding, did this guy. 13th of April 1853, he married Constance Helena Abercrombie. Cha-ching! High money name. 4th daughter of Sir Robert Abercrombie of Birkenboy, who was the 5th Baronet. The only child that the Earl had with Constance would later become Major Honourable, or Major with Honours, I'm not quite sure what it's supposed to mean, Robert Abercrombie Ogilvie Grant. And he was born the 4th of September 1855, 2 years after they got married. And this child actually got married on the 26th of April in 1911 to Evelyn Maud, who was the daughter of H. Hilton, cha-ching, of Kensington in London. These two died with no children. Well, he died on the 11th of April 1925 and he had no children. His mother, the second wife of the Earl, died on the 13th of February 1872. One thing I have noticed with this family, all the way through, there's only like one child per marriage, so presumably they had some, either they were too busy or perhaps a little too restrained, or didn't have the physical capability to have more children than what they ended up having. Earl of Seafield's third marriage was on the 15th of December 1875. Get this. To his sister's sister-in-law. Not quite marrying into the bloodline, but that's a bit too close for my liking. But it was his sister's sister-in-law, Georgiana Adelaide Stewart, who was the widow of William Stewart of Aldenham Abbey in County Hereford and Tempsford Hall, County Bedford. Georgiana died on the 7th of September 1903. So at least they got 28 years. So on the 17th of June 1884, the Earl of Seafield was created as the Baron Strathspey of Strathspey in the counties of Inverness and Moray. You can tell we've switched books here because it's gone from Nairnshire to Inverness. Lord Seafield died in June 1888, aged 70, and was succeeded by his only son from his first marriage, who was Francis William Ogilvie Grant. Lord Seafield, as he is now known, is buried at the mausoleum at Duffill Old Parish Church and Churchyard. just outside the village of Duthill in Inverness. So he's the one who lived there longest. And then I have a little bit about his family history. So I'm going to start with his, I think it's his great-granda, the 7th Earl. Yeah, his great-granda. Now this bit, I can't see the screen. I can see the comments coming up on one page, but I can't see the others. So I'm going to read this out to you because it was way too much to copy out. This is the Earl of Seafield's family, who Seafield School's named after, Seafield Street, everything to do with Seafield in and around Elgin is named after the 9th Earl of Seafield, who's the one who lived in Deansford when it used to be called East Neuk. So here's the extract from the Historic Earls and Earldoms of Scotland, Chapter 6, Earldom and Earls of Finlater and Seafield. John Charles Grant Ogilvy, the 7th Earl of Seafield, a representative peer, created Baron of Strathspey, great rejoicings. He made improvements, his marriage, his death, tributes to his memory. Ian Charles Grant Ogilvy, the 8th Earl, rejoicings on attaining his majority, his death. James, the 9th Earl, Francis William, the 10th Earl, and James, the 11th Earl. That's your subtitle. So it's telling you who it's about. So we're going back to 1853. In 1853, the Earl of Seafield was elected one of the representative peers of Scotland to the Imperial Parliament, and he held his position for 5 years. On the 14th of August 1858, he was elevated to the peerage of the United Kingdom under the title of Baron Strathspey of Strathspey. Under this inspiring title, he continued to sit in the House of Lords. When it was announced that this honour had been conferred on the 20th Chief of the Grants and 7th Earl of Seafield, there were great rejoicings throughout his wide territories, and many bonfires blazed on the hills of Strathspey. They even wrote a poem. A few verses from a poem composed about the event may be quoted. Why are the hills of proud Strathspey crowned with blaze of light? Why do the dazzling fires burst forth amidst the calm of night? Is it the beacon's warning gleam? Is the invader near? And doth the land call forth her sons to aid with sword and spear? The chieftain of their ancient line has won another name, a title dearer to his clan than any he can claim. The bells are ringing far and near, the throng came forth today to render homage to their lord, the Baron of Strathspey. His richer in these loyal hearts than in his princely land, they're true and constant as their rock, which ever firmly stands. But now the bonfire's ruddy glow streams all the country o'er, from Tullochgoram's lofty height on Fruchie and Craigmore. On Cromdale's hill, on Garton's crest, the rival flames ascend, in honour of the Lord Strathspey, the chieftain and the friend. That's quite nice, actually. The Earl took a warm interest in the welfare of his numerous tenantry. Basically, the 7th Earl pretty much owned everything fae Nairn to Buckie. In fact, further than that, Nairn to Banff. So he had a lot of tenants, an awful lot of tenants. And he made extensive improvements on his estates. He erected new farmsteadings, encouraged the reclamation of wasteland, and made roads. He was an excellent landlord, bonus, and won the esteem and affection of his tenants. He directed special attention to the breeding of Highland cattle, and in this he attained remarkable success. His herd of Highland cattle at Castle Grant was, at that time, the best in the north of Scotland. He encouraged agricultural cattle shows and frequently presided at such meetings. He planted a considerable extent of ground on his estates, and it was stated that the plantations and woods on the estates in his time extended to upwards of 40,000 acres. He also made many important improvements on Cullen House and its surroundings. During the 27 years which he held the Grant and Seafield estates, he expended a sum of over £200,000 sterling on improvements. That's a hell of a lot of money in the 1800s. He took a keen interest in all questions touching the welfare and progress of the country. In 1879, he was invested with the Order of the Thistle by the Queen. On the 12th of August 1850, he married Lady Caroline Stuart, a daughter of Robert Walter, 11th Lord Blantyre, Blantyre Street, Blantyre Place. Are we seeing the connections now? By this marriage, he only had one child, Ian Charles Grant Ogilvy. The Earl died at Cullen House on the 18th of February, 1881. His death was universally regretted. His funeral took place on the 25th and 26th of February. See, he was so cool, he had a funeral for 2 days and was attended by a great assemblage of mourners and friends. His body was laid to rest with his father's in the mausoleum at Duthill. Lord Seafield's death before attaining the 70 produced a feeling of mourning as if for a dear friend among all parties and classes throughout the counties of the north, with which he was more immediately connected by property and residence. We have received, and we doubt not our contemporaries have also received, many communications seeking to give expression to the deep and general sense of loss and bereavement. Elsewhere, too, the tributes of commemoration due to one whose life has been beneficial to his country and honourable to himself have been freely bestowed by the organs of public opinion. That's an odd way to put it, the organs of public opinion. Never mind. Not only in the northern counties where he lived, worked and was best known, but broad Scotland feels the sorrow that a great chief and noble Scotsman has departed from our midst. And then there's another wee verse here. It's a wee prayer that was written for him. Oh yeah, absolutely minted, Scott. I mean, this one that we're talking about now is the one before him, but the Hale family would have been absolutely minted. This is a wee prayer that was written for the 7th Earl when he died. Firm as Craigellachie he stood, aye, holding by the right that which was just and true and good, weighed more with him than might. Amen. So, yeah. He was succeeded by his only child, Sir Ian Charles Grant Ogilvy, the 8th Earl of Seafield, and 2nd Baron Strathspey of Strathspey. He was born in Edinburgh on the 7th of October 1851. He was taught by tutors at home and afterwards he studied for several years at Eton. That's how much money they had. Eton School, where Charles's kids went. That's how much money the family had. They sent their kids to Eton. He joined the army and on the 8th of December 1869 received a cornet's commission in the 1st Regiment of Life Guards. In 1871, he was promoted to lieutenant and he retired from the army in 1877. On the 7th of October 1872, when he attained his majority, after he got that rank, oh, absolutely, Maggie. The best marriage you could get would be to somebody who was absolutely minted and had power to pull strings. So this lot have got family members in the House of Commons, in the House of Lords. They've married into the Hilton family. They've married into the Abercrombie family. The only better move they really could have made would have been to marry into the feckin' royal family, excuse the language. You know. So they really knew what they were doing. There were great rejoicings throughout the Grant and Seafield estates. On this occasion, he received a portrait of himself from the tenants of the Strathspey estates, which was painted by the late Sir Francis Grant. The portrait was presented to his lordship by General Sir Patrick Grant in the name of the tenantry. He died on the 31st of March 1884 at Claridge's Hotel in London, unmarried. I bet he was fair living it up at Claridge's. He bequeathed his estates entirely to his mother, which were valued at £80,000 per year, but charged with nearly £800,000 on his death. The peerage of the United Kingdom, Baron Strathspey of Strathspey, became dormant because basically they owed more money than than the estate was worth. But the other Scottish titles without the estates devolved onto James Ogilvy Grant, the 9th Earl of Seafield, who's the one, the uncle and heir of the preceding Earl. So he's the one, this one that we're going to talk about was the one who lived in Deansford House. The fourth son of Francis William, 6th Earl, and was born on the 27th of December 1817. He was educated at Harrow, which is just as posh as Eton, but not quite so famous. He joined the army and was a captain in the 42nd Foot Regiment. He was an elected Member of Parliament for Murrayshire in 1868 and represented the county for 6 years. He was Lieutenant Colonel of the Murrayshire Volunteers. Shortly after his succession to the title of the Earl of Seafield, he was created a peer of the United Kingdom as Baron Strathspey of Strathspey in the counties of Inverness and Moray on the 17th of June 1884. He was thrice married, which we've already discussed, but I'm going to read it out for you as it is. On the 6th of April 1841, he married Caroline Louisa, a daughter of, it's actually Eyre Evans here, E-Y-R-E, of Askhill Towers rather than Ashhill, County of Limerick. She died on the 6th of February 1850. Secondly, on the 13th of April 1853, he married Constance Helena, a daughter of Sir Robert Abercrombie, 5th Baronet of Birkenbog. That's different as well, because that says Birkenboy on the other book. She died on the 12th of February 1872. The third marriage, on the 15th of December 1875, he married Georgina Adelaide, a daughter of Frederick Nathaniel Walker, KCH. So that's a knight of something or other. Bushy Manor House, Hertfordshire. The Earl died on the 5th of June 1888 and was interred in the mausoleum at Duthel. His countess survived him, and she is one of the 3 Dowager Countesses of Seafield. At the time this book was written, she was still alive. He was succeeded by his eldest son, Francis William Ogilvy Grant, who became the 10th Earl of Seafield and 4th Baron Strathspey of Strathspey. He was born on the 6th of March 1847 and also educated at Harrow. On the 24th of December 1874, he married Anne Trevor Carey, a daughter of George Thomas Evans of Otago in New Zealand. He died suddenly of heart disease on the 3rd of December 1888 at his residence in Orvarn, New Zealand, and was interred there. His widow, who was born on the 24th of July 1847, was still alive when this book was written. I've got to look to see when this book was written. Doesn't actually tell me when this book was written. That's really helpful. Not. He was succeeded by his eldest son, James Ogilvy Grant, who became the 11th Earl of Seafield, Viscount Reedhaven, Lord Ogilvy of Deskford and Cullen, and 5th Baron of Strathspey. He was born on the 18th of April, 1876. His lordship is a young man of great promise, so I'm guessing this is like 1890s, 1900s this book was written, because they're saying he's a young man, and he was born in 1876. A young man of great promise, and it may be hoped that there is a bright future before him. If he should return to the home of his fathers, he would receive a hearty Highland welcome. The address which was presented to him in New Zealand on the occasion of attaining his majority emphatically showed the respect and esteem in which this ancient and honourable family is still held in Strathspey and in the north of Scotland, notwithstanding all adverse eventualities and circumstances. In 1883, the family estates consisted, are you sitting comfortably? 160,224 acres of Inverness-shire, 96,760 acres of Moray, 48,946 acres in Banffshire, making a total of 305,930 acres. So basically, they pretty much owned everything in 1883. And I have to look now and see when this book was published. It's not giving me a link back to it. But they've put the value of the estates from 1883. So perhaps at this stage, the one who was born in 1876 is a very, very young man of 7 when this was written. So that's the family. But one of the things I have to tell you that is on Thursday, February the 2nd, 1871, a Mr. Stewart brought a court case against the 9th Earl, the one who lived in Deansford. And this court case made it to the House of Lords, because of course at that point he was a member of the House of Lords. And pretty much it's an argument as to who should be clearing out the ditch between the two properties. And I'll read that one out for you, because it's quite short. It is quite short, honestly. So Thursday, February the 2nd, 1871, we're going back to now. In the Court of Session, Stewart versus the Earl of Seafield. Process Declarator Property March Fence. This is just telling you what it's about. Declarator, at the instance of Stewart of Auchlunkart, in other words, the lawyer for Stewart of Auchlunkart, wherever that is, which the LO dismissed as not containing any conclusions which could be the proper subject of a declaratory action. So the whole thing got thrown out of court, and it tells you that in the first line, okay? In a note, his lordship observed that the true use of a declaratory action is to clear up disputed rights, not to declare mere facts, whether of a positive or negative kind. Number 1, the first conclusion was to have it declared that the Tucker's drain, I haven't been able to find out where it actually was, is not a march ditch between the lands of the parties. It was difficult to say what this means. If it meant that the lands mutually do not march together at that drain, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, Scott. The proper conclusion would seem to have been to have it declared what the extent and boundaries of the pursuers' lands in that direction are, and whether they include or exclude this drain. Imagine taking a court case to the House of Lords where you're arguing over a flimming ditch. The second conclusion was that there is no drain forming the boundary between the parties' lands libelled. This might mean either that there is no drain in existence in that neighbourhood at all, or that a drain which is there is not the marsh. This mere negative in either sense does not seem a fitting subject of discussion in a declarator when no positive case as to the boundary is actually put forward. The third conclusion is that there is no ditch or burn at the place mentioned, which hasn't actually been mentioned, forming a marsh or fence, and was liable to the same objection. That's the march thing that they're talking about, right? The fourth conclusion was liable to a different kind of objection and seemed a great deal too vague and indefinite. It seeks to declare that the defender has no right to compel the pursuer to clean out the march fences, or to do so himself and claim a share of the expense from the defender. The conclusion does not specify any actual march fences which are in view, nor does it even imply that there are any. So they're arguing about a ditch that might not actually be a ditch. It might not actually be there in the first place, but if it is there, they're not quite sure what it's about. Yeah, really sounds like something you should be taking to the House of Lords, doesn't it? It sounds like some of the stuff they discuss now. It was a mere abstract negative proposition with no practical application to any concrete case. The fifth conclusion was that the alleged march ditches aforesaid are not march fences in the sense of the Acts of 1661 and 1669, but no marches are specified, and the term aforesaid is not easily understood because the previous conclusions do not recognise the existence of any ditch at all, unless it be the Tacher's drain, which may be a ditch, but which is not said to be so. You see what I mean? They're spending an awful lot of time saying nothing. You can tell they're politicians, can't you? The sixth conclusion as to the jurisdiction of the Sheriff of Banffshire was, apart from other objections, quite unproceeded in the manner in which the questions were here sought to be raised. The record was not such as can supply the defects of the conclusions. The pursuer held that the summons did not competently raise any question which could properly form the subject of an action of declarator, action dismissed with expenses. People of the court. J.C. Smith, agents. So the lawyers were Maitland and Lyon, W.S. On the other side, we have Saul Point Jen, Clerk Marshal. So they're actually a clerk of the court. And then you also have the agents Mackenzie and Innes of Logan. So that's who was defending who was being who was accusing who, and basically they were all fighting over a ditch that the entire court case couldn't decide if there was a ditch, if there wasn't a ditch, if the ditch formed a boundary to the land. The march boundary is from back in the days wherever when you claimed a piece of land, as far as you could march around the boundary, everything within that would be yours. So that's why it's a march boundary. It's as far as somebody walked. But yeah, let's argue about a ditch. Let's go to the House of Lords with this argument about a ditch. But it might not be a ditch. It might be a fence. But is it a ditch? Is it actually a ditch between the two properties, or is it a ditch on the other side that only borders one property, in which case the other boy's got no reason to raise a court case? What the hell? To put it in layman's terms, the land that belonged to Deansford House when it was built in 1860. Yeah, exactly, Scott. Life's a ditch. For Morriston Playing Fields, or as it is now, Morriston Playing Fields, across the Bishopmill Bridge, and the bit between Decorah and the back end of Cooper Park. That whole stretch belonged to Deansford House when Deansford was first built in 1860. The Earls of Seafield, yes, they have pretty much covered the whole of Murrayshire, Nairnshire, and half of Inverness-shire. So basically, they had the whole stretch from Inverness to Banff and Cullen. So, alright, Stefan, yourself? So yeah, they had a lot of land, and even just the land that goes with the house. It's cool. But imagine arguing over a feckin' ditch. Sorry, I need to stop swearing. Arguing over a flaming ditch. Is it my border? Is it your border? Is it the border between the two of us? Does it even form a border? Maybe it's a ditch, maybe it's nae, maybe it's a fence, maybe it's a ditch. Of all things to take to court, it's a bit mad, isn't it? So yeah, that's what little I was able to find out about Deansford. And so you got more on the Earls of Seafield. And now you know what the Seafield streets and such like in the school are named after, and you also know why Blantyre Street and Blantyre Place are called Blantyre, because it's the same family. So there you go.